Damascus is a Catholic missionary movement that invites young people and their families into a life-changing encounter with Jesus and his church. And that's just where the adventure begins. This is the Damascus Podcast, where encounter meets mission.
Brother Andrew Brébeuf, Brother Joseph Jogues, good to have you on the Damascus Podcast.
Good to be here, Brad.
Yes, thanks for having us. Man, it feels like a reunion.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you guys feel like that when you come back?
Yeah. So Brother Joseph and I, we were both missionaries for 2 years here at Damascus. And just every time we come home, there's so many people. It really does feel like home to us.
It's such a joy. I know that when Nina's here, when she sees you guys, she gets so excited because there's just something about the friends that we had in college, right after college, doing the mission of Damascus, participating in the mission at Ohio State, that when you see them again, it's like, wow, we're all doing different things, but when we get to be together, there's a real celebration.
Absolutely.
You know?
And it's exciting too to see the growth when we come back. Like we came back this time and there's this new adventure complex being built. And so it's just exciting to see everything that the Lord's doing here, and even all the new missionaries who I know so few of them now, which is a good thing that so many new people are being a part of this. So it's exciting. Yeah,
it is exciting. And what brings you guys is there's a group from Denver here this week. Yeah. At camp. Yeah. That's awesome. Are their families pretty involved with the servants? Like how do you know that group specifically?
Yeah, the families that kind of spearhead the trip are actually some of our third order families. So we have several third order families that are kind of living our charism and figuring out how to adapt that to family life. Yeah. So they started getting some people together, and it's grown every year. And I think there's 135 kids who have flown out this year with 20 some adults.
Yeah, that's so exciting. It's so exciting. Yeah, well, let's since we're talking third order, let's talk a little bit about the order in particular. So some of the people listening, I'm sure, haven't heard of the Servants of Christ Jesus. I know that I first heard of the Servants probably in college. I was with St. Paul's Outreach, and Father John Ignatius had traveled for a retreat that they were running here in Ohio, and they brought him in, and I was just really struck by the charism that the community was holding, even at that time when they were really small. And I'd love, you guys are obviously living it every day, so I'd love for the people that are listening, what is it about the servants that drew you to them? What is it about the servants of Christ Jesus that you love? Like, let me just allow you to present a little bit about the order and the third order families that are saying yes. I'm sure we're attracted in the same way I was to the way of life.
Absolutely. So our community, we're committed to evangelization. We love Jesus. We want to share Jesus with others. So we do a lot with college students and young adults mainly. And the way that we do that is through preaching, teaching, and spiritual direction. We're inspired by the life of St. Ignatius of Loyola and also St. Francis of Assisi. So we kind of find ourselves at like an intersection of that Ignatian and Franciscan tradition.
Jubilee year this year too.
That's right.
Yeah, praise God. That's a good intersection to be at.
Yes. But I remember one of my first encounters with the servants was actually with Brother Andrew. And I don't know if you know this story, brother, but I was a summer missionary here my very first year in 2020. Yeah. And I was asking Brother Andrew about just the formation of the servants, and I was curious, how long does it take for you to be a priest? And it takes a while in our community. It takes about 11 years from entry to priesthood. But I remember Brother Andrew's response. He's like, yeah, it's long, but I would rather be a holy priest than a young priest. And that just really struck me and got my attention. And I was attracted by what seemed like a rightly ordered focus of like, I'm about Jesus. I'm about being formed by him and growing in love of him first and foremost, rather than anything else. So so I remember that being one of the biggest moments early on that I was just like, these guys stand out.
Yeah, what a good line. Like you can start feeling the charism even in that line, because we start like embodying from the fullness of the heart, the mouth speaks. So when we say things, it's like, oh, they're living evangelization. Like, because what that sounds like to me is evangelization is the number one priority, that I want to represent Jesus well. I want to bring the good news and represent the good news in the world. What drew you to the servants? I don't know if I know, Brother Andrew.
Yeah. Brother Joseph, thanks for sharing that. It's really, really beautiful. And I have no recollection of it whatsoever. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
That's the Lord. That's how we know it's the Lord, you know?
I actually met the servants first at Ohio State after some Fan into Flame retreats, but it was actually here at Damascus at our retreats we had here. And the first two encounters, one was with Father John. And Father John is the superior of our community. And I just remember seeing him on the retreat. And every time I saw him, it was like he was hearing a confession somewhere and somebody was crying in his arms as he was holding them and praying over them, and he was doing all these healing prayers with them. And I just remember being struck that that is a father. He's not just a priest, he is a father. Yeah. And it's a really big emphasis in our community. I would say one of our charisms really is spiritual fatherhood. Mm-hmm. And it's not just we want to be priests so we can go give we don't want to just be called father, we want to be fathers. Yeah. Which is something really missing in a large way in the church right now. And I remember after I saw that, my heart was just burning for the servants of Christ Jesus when I heard who they were and what they stood for. Mm-hmm. And I totally ignored it for a year because I wanted nothing to do with this brand new community in Denver. Yeah. There were 5 guys in the community at that point. I thought it was going to flop. I was like, whatever. Mm-hmm. Until the following year when Father James Claver came out and he was preaching at Fan to Flame. And he was preaching on his poverty pilgrimage. So when we're in formation, we do 6-month-long formation exercises. One of them is called the poverty pilgrimage, where you're sent usually to another country. And I had a backpack, a change of clothes, a water bottle, a Bible, a breviary, a list of churches and shrines to visit, and a plane ticket home for a month later. And you have to beg your way around the country, relying on God's providence and trusting him to take care of you. And as Father James was preaching on going from southern Mexico to up to California and all of these crazy stories, I was just like, these are people who don't just say they trust Jesus, they're willing to put their life on the line for Jesus. And I wanted so badly to be a saint, but I couldn't find community of people that were living lives like that. I would read the lives of the saints, but then I'm like, where are they today in the church? Mm-hmm. And as I heard Father James preaching this, there was just a fire again in my heart. And it was at that moment I realized I need to go visit this community. There's something to this. Yeah. So that's when I really committed to come visit them.
Yeah, there's something about zeal, you know, like whenever your heart is tugged with like, oh, I need to do something about that. I was thinking like that's probably true in every vocation story, but it's also true in conversion. Like I remember when I first realized like I'm pretty sure Jesus is real, and I'm pretty sure that matters. And that probably means I should do something about it. You know, like that's kind of your sequencing on any like real encounter with Jesus, any real conversion. It's like, this is like not just a good story, it's real. And that's good news. And I should probably do something about that. And same thing on the discernment of a charism. I was considering religious life for a really long time. Like St. Paul's Outreach, I think, does an incredible job of really presenting to you a plethora of ways to live out the faith radically. Like I just saw men living the single life and in religious community and as priests, both diocesan and religious, and amazing married families. And I remember thinking to myself, like, whatever I decide, I want to be all in on, you know? And in my discernment of vocation, I felt like the Lord really allowed me to wrestle out the pride and the presuppositions. Like I remember being like, I'm going to be celibate. And the reason I'm going to be celibate is I'm going to be great at it. You know, like I remember like having thoughts of like, cause we got to save all the souls. I even remember, you guys will laugh at this, but I was in a perpetual adoration chapel here in Columbus, just praying about my future. And I was like, Lord, why would I entertain marriage when there's like, okay, if marriage is getting my spouse and my littles to heaven, but there's already millions of people in the world who aren't making it there. Like, how does it make sense to bring in more souls to get them to a place that a ton of people already aren't going? Mm-hmm. And I remember the Lord in only the way he can, right? Like just so gently reproving me and saying like, well, Brad, if that's the way that you're conceptualizing family, then we have it wrong. Like the goal isn't for you to just get your family to heaven, but get the realities of heaven into your family so they can reach the millions you were never able to. And then I was like, I'm in. That zeal. Like all of a sudden there was this like, okay, I'm super open to that. Like, why am I closed off? And yeah, I love hearing like his line that like, I don't just want, what was it? Like, I'd rather be a holy priest than a young priest. And that also has a patience in it and a trust in it in that statement. And yeah, I've been so blessed by the servants of Christ Jesus. I know that you guys are in Denver. We were talking a little bit beforehand, doing some coaching, which is awesome, coaching football and basketball. Yes, and then Brother Joseph, what's day-to-day your experience in Denver right now? Are you in school? Are you teaching? Are you coaching? Where are things at with all that?
Yeah, right now, so I just finished my 2 years as a novice in the community. And so now I've started seminary. So I'm doing my 2 years of philosophy at the Archdiocesan Seminary in Denver, St. John Vianney.
Yeah, praise God.
Yeah, so it's fun to be back just to the normal rhythm of being a student, of classes in the morning, homework until, I can't do homework anymore in the evening. And, but what's been really fun is I've been given an apostolate this past year and this coming year too, where I'm doing like a men's high school formation program.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's awesome. And we live kind of out in the country. Yeah. And these guys in that area just have so much natural virtue. They come from families that are farmers and just these amazing families. And to see their openness to the Lord, their openness to prayer, it's just, it's been so fun. And even like going to their basketball games, a lot of them are just like incredible athletes. And I sit like in the front row with their dads, and it's so much fun. So it's been a great year.
I love that. And alluding to coaching, how's that been? So you said basketball was last year and then football this
that's
this
right.
year?
Yeah, so I first coached basketball, and then I transitioned schools to a bigger school. This one of the biggest sports schools in Denver, at Mullen High School, and started coaching football there. And that was a dream come true. There's so many times when we say yes to God, we think we need to give up our dreams, which in some ways we really do have to surrender them and offer them, and we may or may not get them back.
Yeah, sure.
Coaching football has been a dream my whole life. It was such an important part of my growth in high school. And I thought I had to give it up when I became a brother, and here I am on the sideline in a cassock coaching football.
Yeah, praise God.
It was just amazing for the players and the ways that I could teach virtue and the ways that I could teach character and even start teaching about the faith on the field. But also like being on the sideline on a Friday night football game, what the parents and the fans see and the rest of the student section, and then the opposing team coming and talking after the game. It was just unreal, both as evangelization and formation.
I bet.
I really think, especially for young men, I think sports is one area of really untapped potential in the Catholic Church that we need to hit, because men are so attentive on the field.
They are. Well, also our theme this summer at camp is Credo, I believe. And I've always loved the cassock or whatever religious are wearing. Like in any time you rid yourself of what you would dress like in the world. And it's a statement of, I believe God's real. Like heaven's real, by the way, you know? And so like the opportunity to be given that back, but represented in the fullness of who you're called to be now is really special. There's kind of I think a consistent theme in life where you're not going to ever avoid the altar. Like the altar is always going to be there, and everything in your life is called to be set upon the altar. And only two things happen on an altar. Something's either burn up and it's an offering unto the Lord, or it's broken and multiplied. Right. And so like this is where this real trust in the Lord, no matter what vocation or what we're called to, you mentioned it with football. It's like, okay, Lord, yeah, everything's on the altar. I didn't know it would multiply like this. You know, I thought it might be burn up, and I was comfortable with that because I was starting to trust you more and more, but to see things come back and even better on the back end than we could have imagined it on the front end is just the generosity of the Lord, you know, just the generosity of the Lord. I want to ask you about this line. So when you were mentioning that the Lord, I don't exactly remember how you were saying it, Brother Andrew, but the line that was coming to my mind is the Lord doesn't want to take anything from us. He wants to transform everything about us. Like, I think that when I work with middle schoolers and high schoolers, which I spend a lot of my time doing, you know, their biggest fear is if I say a full yes here, all the things that I like about me and all the things I like that I do will be taken from me. And I think it's a misrepresentation of what God does. Like God, like in a sense, doesn't even like, he doesn't take the fallout from my sin. He just like transforms the fallout from my sin when I give it over to him. Like in our life, God rarely takes things from us. Right? He gives and takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord, of course. But every time he takes, it's not unto the disappearance of it. It's always transformed either for a different opportunity or back to us better than we could have imagined. Right? Like, is that a fair, I don't know, like tease that out with me. How do you feel about that line as I say it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what comes to mind for me immediately, Brad, is actually even what the Lord does with, and you were getting at this, but even our sin and our brokenness. And I remember even like going into religious life, it's like, I'm not worthy of this. I can't, like, this is a high bar. I never like, I just I don't feel like I have what it takes. And in fact, I feel like I have so much that I'm pulling in with me that it can't be possible. And one of the things that I saw in the brothers when I entered was they had this fearlessness and like just bringing everything to Jesus's light and into his truth and into his goodness. And they want to hear what Jesus has to say rather than their own thoughts and conclusions about X, Y, or Z. And so I remember in my first 2 years of formation in particular, just along with, Father John, who's leading me through it, just giving the Lord all of these failures from the past or disappointments and things that I've just been like dragging around. And in that, what I love about Jesus is he's completely real with us. And so as I'm bringing this to him, he's not like downplaying.
Yeah.
any of like, the dumpster fire, if you want to call it that. He's being totally real and honest with it. And by doing so, he's also showing that his greatness and his mercy and his love is even better and even more than all of that. So I've been most blessed in these first few years of formation of seeing how the Lord is transforming not just even like the good desires and like interests and talents that I had coming into community, but like even the things that I wanted to be miles and miles away from me, he's transforming and making new. And I think that's what's so exciting about being a Christian. And working with young people today.
Yeah, you can weave all that into your narrative. Like I'm thinking of Paul asking the Lord to remove this. It's like, remove this thing that's burdening me. And the Lord doesn't take it because he's allowing it to transform him. And again, there's like these little things in our pursuit of holiness, right? That's like, man, that part of me, I just don't love that about me, And I've been noticing that a lot as I'm maturing just as a father and things. I'm like, man, I see how that can be used for such good sometimes, but man, it gets old. Like I wish I was loving what you were saying too, brother, when you're thinking about like, oh, I'm being called to this way of life and I don't feel like I have what it takes to do that. That seems like a common experience of a man. And I was grateful that you were saying it from the standpoint of considering religious life, because for me, it was in fatherhood and also in being married, right? Like I remember when we first got married, and I think I said this on a recent podcast actually, but I was in this argument with Nina, and it was the silliest argument of all time. Didn't have any real bearing. All that happened was she said something that I took to mean that I was inadequate and didn't have what it takes. And she wasn't saying that at all, but I took it that way. And I was on the defense, and then I was coming out. And I really do think I said this just on maybe even the last podcast, but I guess here's the story again. And she looked at me, and because she's so amazing, she was like looking to apologize. And I remember like halfway through her apology, the Lord like having me stop her of like, hey, Nina, actually, you don't need to apologize. When you said that, it made me feel insecure. And then I've just been spending the last 20 minutes trying to convince you that you're stupid. And I remember just like, again, in the light, then all of a sudden it's like, well, that's ugly. Like I promised you not to do that when we took our vows, right? My weak and vulnerable spots. I know your weak and vulnerable spots. And to counterpunch to your weak and vulnerable spot is not a fair move. But I remember the Lord like taking away that fear of not being enough and instead replacing it with this maturity of like, Lord, I'm not enough, but your enoughness more than covers. Like more than covers. Like when I put that out there and then I just look at Nina and I'm like, so please forgive me for that. And then she reflects what I see in the Lord. Now all of a sudden we're in a dynamic where I'm combating that, I think, kind of classic man experience of man, right? That is, do I have what it takes here? I don't think I do. I don't know if I'm enough, And there's kind of a first move where you want to kind of teach a young man, like, yeah, you feel like you're not enough. So you need to know you are enough. Like there is a good first move there. It's kind of like when it's all or nothing, it's like, let's move you out of the nothing camp into like, yeah, you're enough. And then as you grow, you're like, well, the real nuanced truth is like, no, I'm not really enough, but he's enough. And when I say yes to him, then I am enough. And so then we get the nuance in. But what you were saying there with that experience of, man, do I have what it takes? I think we all probably experience that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an absolutely, I think, universal experience. And that's where I think so much of our initial formation in novitiate and marriage itself and life itself really can be seen as purgatory. The reality is I can either bring purgatory to myself now, and I can be cleansed and healed of everything in me and begin living heaven in this life, which is what the saints do. Or I can just float my way through life and wait until I die, and then I go through purgatory and I get to enter heaven. But the saints don't want to wait. And so they say, give me everything now. Let the fire come upon me now. And we can make the Catholic faith seem so beautiful and joyful, and it really is. But St. Paul, when he's first called, he's told, you will be my chosen instrument to the nations, and I will show you what you must suffer for my name. He's not told from the beginning, this is going to be easy for you. It's if you want to do this, this is what it's going to cost.
Yeah, it'll be worth it.
Exactly.
Yeah, your ROI will be different than what you expected it to be. If you did this in the world, you get this return on your investment. But if you give your whole life to me, the return on investment will be forever life with me, man, I just, I wonder what it is about, what is it about the core wound of man where that fear of inadequacy is so paralyzing? Like, man, I think about how many decisions that I've needed to make in my life. Well, let me just use a tedious one, right? Like, I have a lot of responsibility here at Damascus. I'm doing some things for the diocese. There are times when I'm so behind on emails, and I'll just, I know it sounds so silly, but I will be so behind that I am so afraid to open one, just to open one, because I don't know what snakes are in there. And then as I start working my way through, how many people will I have let down? And I can even feel it, 12 years into walking with the Lord, 10 years into really, really investing in trying to live my entire life centered on him. I'm even noticing now, like, what is playing right now? Oh, I fear that everybody that sent me an email that I'm now having to admit to being late to responding to is going to know the truth that I'm an inadequate failure and that I'm an imposter that shouldn't be here. And there's something to the heart of man that I think, just really, really wrestles with that. And I wonder what that comes from. There's probably something about the original fall, right? There's probably some things about the way we were designed as men. I wonder what you guys think, but it's crazy how it used to show up in big ways in my life. But now, emails, like a stack of mail on the table, like there's a ton of little tedious day-to-day things. And I'm like, it's still there. It's a little more subtle, but working through that with the Lord. Yeah, I wonder, what do you think it comes from? Has that been your guys' experience? Sorry, I'm just externally processing that with you now.
That's awesome. I'm reminded of Gideon from the book of Judges. He's one of my favorite Old Testament figures.
Okay,
he's
tell me more.
But Gideon, so at the time, the Israelites are being oppressed by the Midianites, and Gideon is approached by the angel of the Lord to be like this, to be this judge, almost like this military general for the people of Israel, to lead them into freedom. But Gideon's response when the angel of the Lord comes to him is, I belong to like the lowest clan, like of the people of Israel, and of this lowly clan, I am like the worst. Why me? And the Lord's response to Gideon is, I will be with you. And I think as men, we can often miss that our greatest strength is just the Lord's being with us. That his election of us is where everything else comes out of. Like all of our capability comes out of the fact that we're chosen by him, and that he has his hand on us, that he's with us. And but at the same time, and I think this more gets at your question, but the Lord really is asking Gideon to do a lot. He's asking Gideon to show up on a battlefield, and he has no experience, prior to that.
Yeah.
And so it's not like the Lord is asking him to do something that's arbitrary, but he's asking him to be a man, to be a leader, to be a father to these men, and that's no easy thing at all. And so I think it's both at the same time of the Lord really does ask much of a man, but at the end of the day, all of his capability, all of his strength, it all just flows from the very fact that the Lord is with him and the Lord has his hand on him.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, the response, why me? I will be with you. It almost seems like it's not even a direct answer to the question, but it's the best answer to the question, Like, why me in this position that I'm in, or this thing that I'm called to do, or this assignment that you've given me, Lord? Oh, because I'll be with you. Like, that's why. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's something with, I think, original sin where rather than being sons, we take it all upon ourselves, right? And so in this pride, we put everything on our shoulders. And if everything is on my shoulders and I fail, everything is falling. And we just have this pride that actually leads to this incredible insecurity that I have to have it all together. And it's really funny, in formation, everything comes out and all these insecurities come out. And God just needs to take really, really painful ways to show us how loved we are. And I remember I like to have everything together. And so in my formation, what God did with me is I started breaking everything. I can't explain it. It's just everything I touched seemed like it was breaking. Every time I was sent to do a chore, whether it was putting dishes away or whether it was using a chainsaw or the lawnmower or something like that, just tons of things were breaking. And I realized I'm not blessing my community and helping them get things done. I'm actually costing them extra money and extra time, and I'm breaking everything around the house. And if I just purely judge myself in this utilitarian way of plus minus, I'm in the minus right now. I'm in the red. and my brothers shouldn't love me because I'm not helping them. I'm actually hurting this community right now. And there was a particular moment I was bringing firewood into the house, and right by one of our side doors, we have stair steps that go down into our basement. And I take the wheelbarrow and it goes right over the lip of the door, and a big log falls off and starts rolling down the stairs. And I see in an instant what's about to happen. So I start chasing this thing down the stairs, trying to catch it. And I don't get it in time, and it goes flying into the wall at the bottom of the stairs. And there's just massive hole. And this was like the end of it all, and it just broke me. I remember sitting on the second from the bottom step and just breaking down crying. And I was just like, God, I can't do anything right. I am such a mess. Why would these guys love me? Everyone's going to be so mad at me. And when I bring it to Father John later that night and tell him what happens, the first thing he does, he starts laughing. Just laughing at like a silly thing that's not really my fault. It was just a mistake.
It's a mistake.
And he looks in my eyes and I just start crying. And he just sees how much, and he just gives me this big hug. It shows me I'm loved in the midst of all my mistakes.
I'll sit in this mistake with you.
Exactly. It's I see you. And that's been something that I've carried over for the rest of religious life, that I can make mistakes and I'm still loved and I don't need to be insecure. So I can go out and try things, which most men aren't willing to do because they're scared they're going to mess it up.
Yeah, let me sit in this with you, right? Like, and because I also think there was just so many times that I was coached or taught in a way that was like, you mess up, take ownership. It's almost like humiliation, which then makes me, I'm going to own it even more, right? You miss outside contain and the H-back gets down the sideline, that's on you. It's like, I like maximum responsibility, but coupled with this maximum mercy, this move that relationship is the primary, actually. Not the utilitarian usability of you, but the relationship. And I know that you should have had outside contain. I need you to have it next time because that's going to allow your brothers to trust you more. But also, you missed it this time. What are we going to do? Harp on that for the rest of time? You know, one of the things that's deeply built in me, and again, I think just in this whole kind of idea of men in the church feeling like I don't have what it takes. How can I avoid failure? I try to avoid humiliation like at all costs. It's one of my like initial plays. It's funny because I think a lot of the gifts that I've been given in my life actually have been formed originally around the avoidance of humiliation. And the Lord has been so good to me in the last number of years where he's like, what if I allowed you to keep the gift, but we took the other stuff, you know? Because the reason I was so fast in my thinking and quick to my argumentation was always because not always, because there were times in my past where I would state things and I would be so humiliated when someone would make fun of the idea that I had or the thing that I was proposing. And I'm like, I'm just going to run faster than you to the idea, you know? And then you build that and then it's like, well, that makes me pretty good at presenting, but like, I'd like to get rid of that like fear of humiliation. And there's also this real truth, at least I found in my life, that the antidote to a fear of humiliation is true humility. They're both the same root word, like hummus, human, humility, humiliation, the ground, unto the ground, from the ground. And I've been wrestling out this verse from the Gospel of John where Jesus says, "For this reason my Father loves me. No one takes my life from me, but I lay down my life freely." And it's like a weird line. Like the Father probably loves Jesus for a lot of reasons, but in this particular line, he says, "For this reason the Father loves me. No one takes my life from me, but I lay it down freely." Well, what I begin seeing in that is humiliation versus humility. Like how can, like they're the same thing, but humiliation is when someone forces you to the ground and humility is when you lay down freely. And I was beginning to think like, oh, no one can take Jesus' life from him because his life's already laid down. The Father loves him because his life's already laid down. That he's not still trying to like hold on and control and manipulate and make sure the narrative is exactly what he wants it to be, you know? And I have learned a lot from that. That, Lord, I want to be the sort of man that will lay down, build bridges, build foundations, serve. And if I can do that and not be the one that stands up and tries to build myself into a Tower of Babel, well, then humiliation won't have to be the crucible that the worthy man is tested in. Like the crucible won't have to be humiliation, but humility. And there's so many wrestles in that. Man, the mirror. Let me focus on that. See what you think about this, Brother Joseph. But at the bottom of that staircase, that second step, when you see the hole in the wall, I think what happens in those circumstances, because I've certainly had those in my life, is you begin seeing yourself clearly in a mirror. Like that moment is a mirror for you that I can't do this on my own. Mm-hmm. I don't even know what I'm adding to this whole thing. And again, what I've been reflecting on with some of the conversations I've had on the podcast recently is this deep truth that God doesn't need us. In other words, he would do everything in my life better without me. Like he would love Nina better without me. He'd love Eliza better without me. He'd run Damascus better without me. Like literally everything. I'm the one who gets in the way. I'm the limiting factor in my relationship with Jesus, in other words. Yet he wants me so much that he refuses to do it without me. Now we're into some real true territory where when I'm presented that mirror, what I'm seeing in that mirror is, I don't know if I'm needed. Well, no. God definitely would have like carried the wood and cut the tree down and all that better, but he wanted to do it with Brother Andrew. Mm-hmm. There's certain things like that he's calling Brother Joseph to, but he's like, I'm not going to do that on my own. I want to do it with you. And that's where relationship comes in. I wonder what you think about that kind of like concept, but just that God doesn't need us, but he wants us so much that it looks like he needs us, which that starts to me to define what a loving relationship really is. It's that I choose you.
Yeah.
I choose you.
Absolutely. One of the most defining moments of my experience in religious life so far.
Yeah.
It's actually when we were in India. We were doing a month of just work in the third world. And
where was it in India?
We were kind of all over the place, but we spent most of our time in Calcutta.
Yes. I've heard amazing things about Calcutta. I was wondering if you'd say Calcutta. I've never been, but a lot of good brothers have, and they say it just marks you for
100%. Yes. And it's amazing because where you find people who love the Lord, there's order and beauty and goodness. And then outside of that, it's like chaos. Really. Yeah. And so it was in this context of craziness where one of the first days in Calcutta, I became really, really ill. I think it was like maybe just dehydration or I don't know, but it was the end of the night and my head was just pounding and I felt like I couldn't even walk. And I was laying in bed, just trying to just stay in one place and not feel like I'm like moving a million miles an hour. And it was in that situation of being sick and incapable of doing anything where the Lord actually extended the invitation of taking vows in our community. And so it was like in this moment of utter powerlessness and inability that the Lord like offered for me to be vowed in poverty, chastity, and obedience to him.
Yeah.
And I think that gets at this of like it needed to be that situation, I think, of me seeing myself not being able to do anything, that I had to see the Lord desire me then. Because, even in ministry, and maybe you can relate to this too, Brad, but I think when we're doing a lot of ministry with young adults and college students, often we get to see a lot of the fruitfulness. And we can start to then just kind of like judge our success based on the visible fruit that's like really immediate to us. And so for the Lord to offer...
is what I can see right now based on my skills and gifts being here.
Yes, exactly. Sure. And so the invitation to vows for me, it came not after preaching at some retreat or feeling like I
moved towards the Lord.
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't feel like I had just hit a home run. It was when I was completely down and out. And I think that's just so crucial for us to see, especially as men, that again, the Lord has chosen us just because he wants to. And somehow that's even better than him needing us. It's just like out of just his desire to be with us. So it's an amazing
That's
mystery.
a good litmus test for life too. Like in those really hard seasons that we'll all find ourselves in, the relationships that are still there, those are the ones. And the Lord is always still there. Like he goes to the lowest place. Like that's the Lord. He meets us right there. Because I've experienced that in marriage to Nina. It's like, there's 1,000 reasons that I probably chose Nina, as like, man, I would really love living life with you. But man, those moments of when it's hard and when I'm bummed and when I'm like, I'm not bringing the strength that you need right now. And she chooses me. It's like, well, now we're talking relationship. And that's what God does for us all the time as men, that he meets us in that low place. I was thinking about a talk that I gave when you were mentioning kind of the experience that we might share in common, although in different vocations, through external ministry, you know? And I gave a talk one time at a conference we were running here, and I was really proud of the talk. I wasn't proud of the talk because I articulated it perfectly, and I wasn't proud of the talk because it was all novel concepts. I was really proud of the talk because I felt like I did everything the Lord asked me to, nothing more and nothing less. And as a speaker, maybe because of my extroversion and a ton of other personality traits, both flawed and beautiful, and all the mess that's in me, I will often add things because I'm like, oh, this will be even better, that the Lord didn't really ask me to add. Or I will subtract things that I'm like, well, I don't know if I really need to do that. It won't really pack the punch, you know? And this one I stepped off and I'm like, Lord, I feel like I stewarded that exactly as you had had it for me. And I felt like he was inviting me to actually walk. We have a side ramp, and to walk to the back, to not engage, because you guys know this well. And God bless these people, and God bless the circumstances that afford me the opportunity to receive this. But sometimes people will immediately want to come to you and say, hey, that message. Mm-hmm. And I love that. And sometimes I love that too much. And in this moment, there was this opportunity like that the Lord invited me to just the back of the room. And I went to the back of the room to really try to allow him to be the first response on how I did, you know, not like whoever might have like heard it and been really touched, and praise God that probably happened. But I was just in the back reflecting with him, and one of the gals who works with me here at Damascus, she came up to me and she was just like, hey, I feel like the Lord really wants you to just ask him what he thinks of you right now. Like just this perfect, like spot on, exactly what I was feeling walking down, just confirmation, you know, these like little like God winks of like, oh, okay, that is what you want me to do. And I remember having one of the most meaningful images I've ever had from the Lord. And it was probably 5 seconds, you know, not fast, super fast, but like feeling like it drew out forever, you know? And I just asked the Lord in that moment, hey, what did you think of, what do you think of me? What do you think of this moment? And he showed me this image of my mom and dad own a little camp on 2 acres on the Ohio River, like really humble property that I love. It's like my favorite place in the world. And the Lord, as he was revealing to me, like the father particularly was building this barn. Okay. So he was just building this barn in one of the side yards of this property. And as he's building the barn, I just see a little image of me, like as a little dude. And the father's building the barn. He's like putting every piece in, like moving really quickly. He's looking over to me. I'm just taking wood from the ground and handing it to him and kind of watching. And he's demonstrating and showing and like allowing me to hold the hammer sometimes, like all this. And again, like the image probably goes super quickly, but it feels like an entire experience, you know? Long story short, I kind of come out of the field to go inside because it's hot out. And as I go in to like get a drink, Mary is actually like at the sink, just like doing dishes, and like looks over at me, and it was just like so real. And then, and Mama Mary just looks and says like, hey, what are you and Dad doing outside? And I responded, we're building a barn. And then the image was over. And I remember thinking to myself, we're building a barn. Like, no, not really. Like he's building a barn. Like, I'm getting in the way. Like he would pick up the wood faster than I can hand it to him, you know? Like every single thing that he's done would be much more expedited without the contingency of needing me to be an assistant. And as I said that, I was like, oh, that's it. Like, what are we doing here during this? Like, we're building a barn. And like, I'm just so grateful to hand you wood. Like, I like love that relationship. Like help me be the sort of man that will never say no to handing you wood and just being there. Don't let me go build a barn in a different field that I'm doing myself so I can call it mine. I'd rather be handing you wood forever, you know? And I think that, man, if we can get that right as men, because we get all these things that are absolutely true. Like as men, we should be providers. As men, we should be protectors. Of course, yes. But you're not the primary and principal provider like the Lord is. And he wants to provide through you for your family, but he is ultimate provision, right? He's the ultimate protector. And I think to your point, Brother Andrew, we can put such a weight on our shoulders in pride, even a subtle pride. Like we don't even know it's happening, but like, of course I have to be this. It's like, oh yeah. But you're a son first and then a brother, which makes you a father. And then eventually you can become a patriarch that has a legacy under you. But like, let's just make sure that we know that that's the order. Like I can never be a father if I'm not a son. I don't know, but building barns, you know, like building barns with the Lord, recognizing that that it's him who's doing the heavy lifting, but he's really glad to do it with us, you know? I want to harken back a little bit to the, just that principal wound of inadequacy. What do you think it is about men that fear that? Like, so my experience, I've just worked with thousands of young adult men and women. Usually my experience, and this isn't novel, I'm not saying something that people probably haven't heard, but my experience of men is they have this core lie that I'm not enough, this deep fear of inadequacy. Women, on the other hand, have this kind of like core fear of abandonment that manifests as like, instead of like a fear of inadequacy that says I'm not enough, it's a fear of abandonment that says I'm not lovable. Something like that. And I'd love to wrestle that out with you guys because you work with young men the same as I do. And there's something to it, and I haven't gotten fully to the bottom of it, but I'm wondering why is it that is the wrestle of men, of sons particularly? Maybe we can circle back to that.
I'm reminded of a recent retreat that we were helping out at in Arizona, and we were with maybe 50 college men. And before the retreat, I just remember praying for the group, and just this image came to mind of like a man with just this huge jar of oil, and kind of like mimicking like Mary of Bethany.
Sure.
And just like so ready to just dump this thing of oil somewhere, but not sure where. And as I was praying more, I just saw in this group, but I think, for men at large, there's this desire to, I want to shatter this jar and go all in and be all out. And I can't wait to do it. But what's deserving of this? And if I do it, how will I be received? How will this be received? But I there's so much in me that wants to give, but there's kind of this question mark of what will happen after I do it. Will it be worth it?
Will it be received?
Will it be received?
Will it stay?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think part of the mystery that every guy has to go through is you kind of just have to go for it without knowing what will happen after the jar is just shattered and broken. And also Jesus is the only one who's entirely worthy of such an offering of that gift. And so I went to Ohio State, Brad, and actually all three of us did.
Yeah, go Bucks.
Really exciting. Yeah, go Bucks.
Yeah.
And I remember my freshman year realizing everything is available to me on this campus right now, the good and the bad. All of it's available to me.
Yeah, totally true.
And I can like shatter this jar of oil on the good or the bad. It's up to me. And I think also within the experience of man is we frequently try to shatter it in just totally the wrong places. And so now there's just this kind of skepticism that we have towards ourselves of, well, if I'm going to go all in, am I deceived in to whom I want to give this to, or can I actually do it? Or actually, have I already spilled out too much of the oil that I have nothing left to give?
I was going to say that
so,
even though this oil jar is so large, do I even have as much oil in that as I think I have? Mm-hmm. Like I think these are real thoughts that we have, it's like, man, it's heavy for me, but is it as much oil as that guy's got over there? Yeah. And if we give to the same thing, am I even needed? Like, why would I have to give in the same place? Like his gifts and talents would do way better than I would over there. So like, where should I go? Yeah, I think what I'm hearing when you're saying that is just like, man, a reason this is true to the heart of man is we're all trying to find our place. We're all trying to find our place. And we're used to this zero-sum game where like, if that's your place, where's my place? Mm-hmm. If you're called to preach and I'm different, how could I preach in a way that why wouldn't you should just give the message? It's like, but no, what's the Lord doing in me? Where's my place? Yeah, that's interesting.
I really think both of those wounds from man and woman, I really do think it's one core wound that's expressed in two different ways because our hearts are made differently. So I think there's a common wound of humanity it's expressed in a woman's heart and a man's heart differently. But it all goes back to Genesis, right? Whenever Adam and Eve fall, what's the first thing they do? They run and they hide because they're scared. Will my father love me? Will he accept me? Is he going to yell at me? What's going to happen? Which just goes back to Brother Joseph's answer of, God constantly in scripture telling us, I am with you, I am with you, I am with you, I am with you.
So good.
And I remember my first vows I took, my temporary vows, were so exciting. And it's beyond what I can put into words. They were beautiful, they were romantic, they were heavenly. I mean, God did things in my heart that I can't understand. And so I thought my final vows, when I took my perpetual vows, I thought it was going to be like that, even higher. And for the months leading up to perpetual vows, God kept showing me how weak I was and how broken I was and how sinful I was and how many mistakes I made. And I remember at one point I went up to Father John after I'd already been accepted by the community for perpetual vows. And I gave him a call. I was so distressed one day and I said, Father, I don't know if I can take perpetual vows. I said, I don't have what it takes. There's this scripture where Jesus says, before you build a tower, see, do you have what it takes to build the tower? You're going to look like a fool when it's halfway built and you don't have anything left. Yeah. And I said, Father, I can't build this tower. I don't have it in me. I'm not enough for this. And it's beautiful that the way God prepared me for my perpetual vows was not through this crazy fruitful ministry. It was through me seeing how much I needed him and how little I actually was. Yeah. And again, mediated fatherhood through that moment was where Father John spoke into my life and told me how much he sees in me and how he loves me and how I am absolutely right. I'm not enough, but the Father's got my back. And there's this phrase I've used since then, that as men, we need to learn to be secure in our insecurities.
Amen.
That we're all going to have insecurities. We're all going to have doubts. It's part of our human nature.
That's
we're
a good
wounded.
word. Yeah.
But can I be secure in that God's got my back and he's going to take care of me, even whenever I know I don't have it all together. And there was this really beautiful image I got at the end of the football season. I was with the freshman guys, and there was a praise and worship event we had, and I saw this image, and I saw God the Father looking at me, and he was going like this. Okay, this was our call on defense. I was calling plays at the end of the year, and it's our call for all day yellow, which was cover one. Yeah. You're staying in cover one, which means you're man to man, but you've got safety help over the top if you get beat. And right before that, the game before, some of my corners went up to me. We were playing man, and they were like, brother, we're not good enough to play man. These receivers are so good.
Yeah.
And I had to look at them as a spiritual father to them and say, no, you are good enough. You can play man against these guys, and I'm not going to switch to zone because of your insecurities.
Yeah, good.
You can do this.
Good call. Yeah.
And I started laughing during this prayer time when I see God, and I'm like, what is like God telling me what plays to call? What is going on? And instead what God was telling me was, I believe in you, and I believe you can play man when you don't think you're good enough to.
Even if he beats you to the inside.
If you get beat, you have safety help over the top. I've got your back. You're not on your own. You're not on an island. And it was this beautiful message to me of how much God trusts us, but how he's willing to help us because he knows we're going to fall and make mistakes.
That's so good. Yes, I love that. I love that. I really love the idea that, because I think it builds off of that image of the jar. It's, this core, I think the core wound manifests as a question, do I matter? And then the fear of inadequacy answers that no, right? The fear of abandonment answers that no. Like if someone will abandon me, if I'm not lovable, then no. If I'm inadequate, if I don't have enough, then no. But those are false. Those answers are false. That's why we can't leave those fearful questions rhetorical. Like you have to answer them. You have to press in. Like, do I have enough? Don't leave it rhetorical. Say yes or no. You'll probably say no because that's what you're feeling right now. But now let's work it back and see what's really real. Because again, the fall, it's the mirror. The reason that what happens in Eden is their eyes are open, but they try to earn something they were given freely. The serpent says, you'll be made like God if you do this. Well, we were already made like God, but now we're trying to earn it. And now we have a mirror and we failed and we're a little exposed and we're running and hiding because we're afraid that we don't matter anymore. Yeah. And then the Lord comes in and he asks, where are you? Not because he needs to know, because God always knows where we are. We need to know, like, look where you are. You're hiding. And when the Lord can reveal that to us, I think that we can really begin making strides. Like, oh, here's the areas I'm hiding. Here's what I hide behind. Here are the things that I display out that are masking whatever fear is here. I really love the football analogy, though. That's so good that the Lord's showing you a play call. Like, that's just who he is. He wants to work with what he has made us for in our lives. And that's so good.
The reality is we really just need the Father's love, but it's so hard, especially at first, to receive that immediately from him, that we need that mediated through other men. And so we need father figures in our lives who are looking at us, who are looking us in the eyes and telling us their love for us and telling us they're there for us. When I feel like I'm at my lowest point, holiness is not obtained when we're at our high points and everything's going well. if you want to become a saint, it's when you hit your low point and you realize I don't have it in me, and you still see the love the Father has for us. And the problem is we don't have many spiritual fathers at the church today. We don't have men that are so secure in themselves that they can go father other people in this.
Yeah.
And so the church needs holy men to be raised up, to be able to look at biological or spiritual sons and daughters and point them to who they actually are when their lives are falling apart. And that will bring healing and security. And that's what's going to secure a new generation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what puts their feet back under them and puts you on solid ground. It like, hey, we're good. We're not on sand. We're on a firm foundation. You're okay. You're safe. You're protected. Like, yeah, that reinforcement. And man, just in the same way that in the world, like being an orphan or without that, like being a spiritual orphan is like, we have so many of those where, and then it begins manifesting in so many ways. Like, cause there's could be one of two moves of orphanhood, something like that. But, the first move could be, well, I'm a victim. And so I give up. Like I give up. Like I'm just going to keep beating the victim drum, and I'm going to play that out for the rest of my life. Like, woe is me, right? Like this kind of like motif. The other is, yeah, right. Like I am going to earn, strive, and build up the most impressive resume you've ever seen. My favorite musical is Hamilton, and I don't even like musicals. This is again like where the Lord knew that I needed my wife. We were on our honeymoon. It was raining outside, and I'm like thinking of like all the different like, oh, we could toss quarters. We could see who can like. I'm just coming up with all these games. Like we can compete the whole time. And my wife's like, like what if we watched something? Like maybe something beautiful. Like there's a musical out, and I'm like, I never watched musicals at this point, like legitimately. And she's like, it's Hamilton. It's about Alexander Hamilton. And I'm like, I like history, like now we're talking like this could be a bridge. And I was like, sure, and sat down, and we get to intermission. I'm not exaggerating. We get to intermission. She looks over at me. We've just been kind of so drawn into the plot that we haven't even really checked in. At intermission, she looks over and I'm just weeping. And she's like, I'm like, I have no idea what's happening. Like, I have no idea what's going on. And we've watched it a number of times since. We named our little daughter Eliza Marie, Elizabeth and Mary, 2 long-awaited pregnancies in the Visitation, of course, but also Eliza because that's the name of Hamilton's wife. And there's just a real power in that musical for me because the entire musical is about Hamilton trying to control the narrative of his life. So he's an orphan. He's going to prove to people that he matters, and he's super smart, and he's faster to ideas than other people, and he's super determined, and you can't knock him off his path. And he does all these things, and he makes mistakes in his life, but he gets ahead of it. Like notably, like he has this affair that he gets ahead of by writing a pamphlet, and he sends it around without ever even checking in on his wife. He never even tells his wife he's going to do it. So by the time it circulates the whole town, he's gotten ahead of the narrative, but he's lost the relationship. And he's so obsessed with getting that thing right that he's not getting the most connected thing to him right. And it's super crazy how the entire like plot of that ends because Hamilton famously, as probably everybody listening knows, he dies in a meaningless duel. Like a duel that didn't even have to happen, a duel that was really predicated on pride and what you should do as a man. And Aaron Burr shoots him in a duel, and Hamilton, when they turn, he points his gun to the sky because he needed to prove something, but he wasn't going to follow through on it. Well, Bird, when he turns, he fires, and Hamilton loses his life in this meaningless duel. And the last song of the musical is "Who's Gonna Write Your Story?" Like the last song of the musical is like he had spent his whole life controlling and crafting this perfect narrative to die in a way no hero would be like, you know what? I'd like to die in a prideful duel. That's what I'd like. My last breath will be in a prideful duel that I didn't have to do, dying meaninglessly. Like that's probably not his character arc. Like that wasn't how he'd ride off into the sunset, but it was. And then this really deep question of who's going to write your story. And for him, like obviously there's a lot, in my opinion, about the Lord in this, but like for him, it was his wife, Eliza, who he crushed. But she tells the most beautiful story, and we now know him as a hero because of this story of a broken man that she told still with dignity because she was in it with him. She still loved him. He was a mess. He did things wrong. He hurt my heart, but he was good, and I loved him. And other orphans deserve opportunities because what I saw in him. And Eliza tells his story so magnificently. But of course, in our life, the Lord has the pen of my life. Like, I don't write the narrative. Like, who's going to write your story? Not me. I could die tomorrow. I could die tonight. Like, I'm not crafting that. Who will write my story? Well, the Lord, who has known it all the whole time, right? And I tie all that back just to this piece of, man, when I can see the Lord with me, when he's with me all the time, I can begin letting that pen go. Because I don't have to actually prove by pen or otherwise that I matter. I matter because I exist. And the one who breathed trillions of galaxies into existence decided, you know what? It'd be good for you to exist. And then I matter. So now I can live from that instead of for it, you know? Yeah. Wonder what you guys think about that. Sorry, that was a long-winded, but man, the Hamilton musical piece, I just think ties in super well there. Like how are we as men letting go of the pen? Not an abdication of responsibility. So hear what I'm saying, not what I'm not.
Of course.
But a healthy surrender to the Lord. Yeah. And then when he passes something back to me, I will steward it the best I can. Probably fumble it, but steward it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder what you guys think. I'll throw it back. I feel like I'm just externally processing my heart every time you share something.
No, I just since we arrived, Brother Andrew and I have shared a few times, I just can't believe we're here. I feel so lucky that we're here. And that's, we find ourselves saying those kinds of things often where either in mission or whatever it might be, we're in a circumstance where it's like, I just never in a million years could have imagined my life unfolding this way. Like last summer, I'm, begging my way through Ireland with Brother Thomas, and we're sharing the gospel with, as many people as possible, or helping deliver babies in Kenya. It's like, I grew up in a little farm with, more dairy cows than people, and I have no right being here and loving the Lord in this way and laboring in his kingdom in this way. But here we are. And so that's why I'm so grateful that one thing that Damascus stresses to these young people is that is to live the adventure, and that this comes from living with Jesus. And it's that life with Jesus that especially that initial surrender to Jesus, where we're now saying, Jesus, what do you want my life to be? Not, this is what I want my life to be. Jesus, will you just sign off on it? It's like when that shift is made, we find the Lord just, taking us places we never could have imagined, and using us in ways that we never could have imagined. And it makes you want to give more of yourself too. And I think that just shows how much the Lord really is love, because when I'm encountering him, I want to give more. I want to be more generous to him as he's being so generous to me. So
how lucky we are to be on the adventure with him. Can you share a little bit, like what's something that stands out to you about Ireland and Kenya? Is there a story or something? Obviously there's probably plenty of things that should be yours and the Lord's, but I wonder, is there anything that comes to mind when you're thinking about the adventure you had with him there?
Yes. One of my favorite experiences of formation, and I have a lot of those. but,
I'm hyperbolic, so what ends up happening is I have said 5 things that are my favorite in one conversation. Yes. The person's like, "Wait, I thought this other thing was your favorite." Yeah, they all are.
Here we are. But so in our formation, we do a month working in a hospital, and we go to a hospital in Kenya, which is really exciting, and it's run just by these super faithful religious sisters, and they're doing amazing work in this little town in Kenya. And one day I was invited to be alongside a surgeon who's like performing a C-section on this pregnant mother. And like I'm across the table, from the surgeon with this mother between us, and like we're opening her up, and we're pushing out a baby, and now there's a baby that's like, crying and screaming. And I just remember after like helping the surgeon sew back up, the woman's abdomen and her womb, I so greatly wanted to father. It's like, this is Lord, what does this mean for me? Because Lord, I won't have children in the same way that, this woman was, but Lord, thank you for bringing me to the front lines of like life. And I want more of this, and I don't know what that means. And so I love that. I love that that experience, because it was, it's still just a mystery to me. And it's kind of like one of those first experiences of knowing I want to be a father and I want to grow here. And in fact, I mentioned earlier, I've been doing like this high school men's formation group.
Sure.
And there's this other just really defining moment where I was at their basketball game, and I've told them this story. They think that I'm ridiculous for this, but they were just like destroying this team that they were playing.
Sure.
And all the guys, they were sitting just on, sitting on the bench, triumphant as like the last 30 seconds are ticking by. And I remember looking at them and just this thought that's never come out of me before just exploded out of nowhere. And I was just like, I want to feed them so much food. All of those guys, I want them to have so much food to eat, and
slaughter the fattened cow.
Yes, right. Yeah. And it's this other just moment where in my surrender of, Lord, I don't know what fatherhood will look like for me. It's still a question mark. The Lord's giving me a glimpse of how it's still being built in me, cultivated in me, and I can't wait to see what it will be, because this is my third year in the community, and I'm 25. I've hardly even started, and so the Lord's just like giving me promises really through all of these experiences of what is to come, and it's just the most thrilling thing ever. To see the Lord making promises, because when He makes a promise, He is going to do it. And it just fills me with excitement. And I see it in my brothers too. And in Father John and those leading the community, like they're living it. They're experiencing the 100-fold. And I want that. And it makes me want to give even more. So it's just, it's awesome.
Yeah. Well, a lot of great saints didn't even make it to 25. So, the Lord can do a lot in a short time frame. But I also was reflecting on, just the connection you're making, because there's this general sense that like, I'm going to be totally under the Lord, surrendered, that when I realize that I matter, I can give Him the reins of my life and He can lead me where He would take me, if it's Ireland or Kenya or wherever. And then when I'm actually in that with the Lord, I begin realizing that like, that this whole thing was about me being with you in the first place. And He starts revealing aspects of my heart and like these desires that He wants to fulfill, like fatherhood or whatever it is. And He takes us on an adventure. Like one of the really big defining moments for me. So I've listened to a lot of lectures from Jordan Peterson, and he's an intellectual hero of mine. He just changed my life in a lot of ways. And he reflects a lot on the call of Abram. And I love the call of Abram, and I feel like I've preached it in like every message in the last 5 years, because the call of Abram, it's so apropos to everything that we're talking about when it comes to men. Like, would you be willing to say yes to the Lord if you didn't know exactly where you were going? So I hear young adults tell me all the time, if God would just tell me what His will was for my life, I'd do it. I'm like, no, you wouldn't. Like, when was the last time you got up to your alarm and actually showed up to every meeting that day on time? Like, never. So you think if the Lord would lay out 50 years for your life, you would not fail to pursue that? Like, you'd fail on day one and give up on, like, that's not how God works. He invites us into this adventure. Like, do you trust me? And at the call of Abram, He's like, all right, dude, you're 80, living with your parents. So it might be like, we can probably go like out, like go do something else, But He looks and He says, leave the land of your father and mother to a place I will show you. Like, there's no coordinates. He doesn't even tell him where they're going. He just says, let's go on an adventure together, me and you. Would that be okay? And like, as men, it's only when we surrender that fear of inadequacy, when we surrender that fear of, do I matter or not, that we can really begin hearing that, like, actually, okay, if I'm living in a place where I don't know if I matter or not, but God wants to talk to me, so that must mean something. The first move He makes is to invite us into adventure. The first move He makes is, oh, if you don't think you matter, wait till you see this. Let's go do something. Would you trust me? And what was it? I forget whose quote this is, but faith is taking the first step when you don't see the rest of the staircase. Like, Lord, I'll take the step with you. I'll go in that direction.
And that's really the prerequisite of surrender is trust, because if I don't trust, I can't surrender.
Good.
And so I remember when God first called me to the priesthood, I was at Ohio State on a retreat, and I saw these priests hearing confessions. And I just looked at them and I thought, that's so heroic. Literally, their only job is to get as many souls to heaven as possible the rest of their lives. They give Jesus to people and they forgive sins.
Yeah.
And there was just this little invitation I heard in my heart that just said, you could do that too. And my first thought is I looked up to heaven and I said, God, I will do anything for you, but please don't make me do that.
Yeah, sure.
I said, I'll go anywhere. I don't want to do that. I couldn't conceive of myself ever being happy not having my own wife and children.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful, actually, that you bring up Genesis 12 with Abraham, because this came to an apex on a retreat here at Damascus. And on the club floor out there, I remember there was this retreat, and it wasn't a retreat for myself. It was a retreat where I was serving, where I was giving others. I was emptying myself like Jesus for others. And in the middle of this praise and worship on Saturday night, when I kind of did all my jobs and I was done and I was just exhausted, God's presence just came over me in a way I can't explain. And I just fell to my knees. My eyes were just fixed on the crucifix. And I just heard God the Father speak so gently. I have a plan for your life, and you can say yes or you can say no. I'm not going to force you. You choose.
Yeah.
But if you say yes, you're going to have to make many sacrifices your peers won't. But I promise you, if you say yes, I will bless you and I will make you a blessing for so many other people, which is the call of Abraham, that he would be blessed and become a blessing to the nations. But again, God didn't tell me where to go. I didn't know what it was. But at that point, I trusted him enough.
Yeah.
I was willing to surrender my life, where I said,
it's a blank check.
God, I'm all yours. I'll go anywhere. And this ultimately came to fulfillment when I took perpetual vows. Part of our formula is we say, God, I beg you that you would take this holocaust of myself, this whole burnt offering of myself, where I'm not just willing to give you my time. I'm not just willing to give you my money. God, my whole life is laid on the altar. I'm yours. You do whatever you want with me.
Yeah, praise God.
And even in my insecurity, as I said, leading up to perpetual vows, because I trusted him so much, I'm willing to make a holocaust of myself, and I'm eager to in love, even though everything within me is telling me, you can't do this. You're not enough.
Yeah.
But I've seen him come through so many times. He's been so good to me. And he's loved me in so many hard places, which, again, that's purgatory. That's formation.
Yeah.
It's getting into hard places and letting the Father love you in those.
It is.
That's redemption.
It is. It is redemption. And to recall that, to remember, right? Like that word for man in Genesis. We're in Genesis, so we might as well go there. Yeah. Like when God makes man, he calls man Zakar, meaning to remember. And he names woman Nekeva, meaning to be open to receive. Well, that has a lot in this whole conversation about mattering and how it presents. But like, let me remember, Lord. Remember how you've always been there for me. Let me remember those moments. Even when I stray, even when I fail, let me remember how every time I've been shown the mirror, the person standing right next to me is you. It was on our wedding day. Nina and I, we got married in 2020, which was a weird time in the world. If you're listening and you don't know that was a weird time in the world, you might be too young to be like, no, I'm just kidding. 2020 was just like, what is happening? We laughingly say we changed everything about our wedding, but the person and the date. Because August 15th, 2020, it was the Feast of the Assumption, and it was on a Saturday, and it was just perfect. We're like, man, this, and you schedule that before you know a pandemic's coming, and then we're like, well, we're going to try to hang on to the date. What's going to happen? Who's going to be there? And it gets to the day, and the song, just the prayer of Augustine is being sang in the church prior to me walking out, which is such an honor on that day. And like, my goodness, like, you know, this beautiful, again, Genesis, this beautiful procession that we see in Genesis that happens every day at Mass. Like there's this special moment where you're leading that procession in this like one opportunity of laying down your life. Like, yes, Jesus is going to be the sacrifice on the altar, and you're the sacrifice, husband. So go on, buddy. And I was about to leave the sacristy with my priest friends, and it just was struck to the core in the prayer of Augustine of like our hearts search restlessly and find no rest till they rest in thee. And I'm just like crying, which is not like atypical for me, but just like that always denotes to me is just like, man, the Lord is trying to tell me something right now. And a priest friend being so good to me looked back and he's like, are you all right? Like, we can just take a minute. They can just keep, playing the song. And he says it better than I do, but he's like, I was imagining Brad would say like, I'm just so in love with this girl, or like whatever the thing is, and all that would have been appropriate. But my response was, I'm just so glad he saved me. Like, goodness, like I don't deserve any of this at all. And like when you can taste it, when you can feel like the only thing I deserve is non-existence, not in a self-deprecating, it doesn't matter, not to deprive myself, but like I don't deserve anything, but he's given all this to me. And I just remember leaving like, I'm so glad he saved me. I'm so glad my life looks like this. I'm so glad she's going to be my wife. I'm so glad that this is the way I get to lay my life down. And you're just mentioning, because the same thing, it was that in that moment that I'm like, I am woefully inadequate for the assignment at hand. But Lord, if this is where you're calling me, I'll go. Because the one thing I said yes to when I said yes to being Christian is that I would never tell you no. That's the ultimate yes, is whatever you say. But you guys do some direction. So I wonder, let me play that out. Like, I feel like the invitational point you were making, Brother Andrew, is standing out to me, because the Lord never forced me to marry Nina, and he certainly didn't force her to, well, actually, I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. The Lord works by invitation, not by force. Like, he honors our free will. And as I work with men in their lives, one of the ways I see control pop up sometimes with the men that I walk with is they'll be like, the Lord, like, I just have to do this. It's the Lord. It's like, you have to, and it's the Lord. So you have to do it, and it's the Lord. So he's forcing you to do the thing. Let's parse that out, because I'll have like a guy like, the Lord just made it really clear, like, I have to ask her on a date. I'm like, you have to. Okay, well, let's just parse it out. And then like, oh no, he's inviting you to the opportunity to, and now you get to choose, right? Because the Lord, like he, like you were saying, Brother Andrew, so well, like, will you, the call of Abram, the call of countless over time, right? Jesus, let this cup pass from me. Like, great saints and God himself, like, will you let go? I just think that when we're working with men, it's really important to recognize that, like, surrendering isn't defeat, and it's not weak, and not having absolute certainty doesn't make you wrong. You don't have to build up that the Lord is like, it's definitely the Lord. It's like, the Lord's inviting me, and I've been feeling him invite me, and I think I want to say yes. Like, you don't have to be afraid of your desires. At the end of the day, he's the fulfillment of them, not the abdication of them. I wonder if you guys feel that sometimes when I'm working with guys, it's just like, they're so zealous to give their life to the Lord that they're like, I know he's doing this. And sometimes I'm just trying to like pull them back a little bit, going, I'm so excited for you. Like, I want you to know how excited I am by what you're saying. I also want you to recognize that the Lord might be like really putting something passionate on your heart, so that you know you have the opportunity to say yes if you want. But that invitational reality of God is so powerful for us as men, because he's not saying you have to, but you always get to. And anyway, wonder, again, throwing that back to you guys, wonder what you think as I say that.
Yeah. Well, Brother Andrew alluded to this earlier of how powerful it's been for him to have fathers in his life mediate blessing. And something that I've definitely seen in ministry with college guys especially is, as they have these amazing desires arise in them, I find that if they're encouraged to just like share it with a man in their life who's older than them, to like help them just kind of see it more. Sometimes there are two responses. One is like, yes, that's a great idea, I'll talk to him right away. Or sometimes it's kind of like a deflated balloon response, where I think even just the suggestion of having, like a fatherly figure process and look at it with them makes them kind of note like, okay, I actually immediately know that I am kind of being immature here. And it's such a blessing to be able to go to a man who is a father to us with these things that the Lord has put on our heart, because it challenges us, one, to a humility of like, okay, this is what I've gotten from prayer to the best of my abilities. This is what I have. And so there's an active humility.
It's your loaves and fish.
Yes. Yeah. But at the same time, to have a father then like approve or affirm or correct or like reshape it, and then you receive it again. Yeah. It sets your priorities straight once more, because as you get it back from this father in your life, you see it again through the lens of a gift. And not this thing that I must do, not this thing that I feel like I ought to do, but here it is, reshaped and kind of processed more and given to me again by a father. And I think that's a practical thing that college guys especially really can do, is many of them do have, maybe it's a campus minister or a priest who they admire, someone who would be willing to just sit and talk and process and pray about it some more. And I think that's a huge step for guys often.
Yeah, as Damascus, Paul needed Barnabas and Timothy. Like you need someone that's like a mile marker down from you that can sit with you, and then a mile marker behind, because then you find yourself like, oh, I still have that part of me. Is that it? Like, how do we walk this path of maturity together? You know, what do you think about that, Brother Andrew?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We try as men to do it so often on our own, and that's where spiritual direction has been such a blessing. And so much of spiritual direction is listening and letting them process, and then reminding them what the Lord has said and what the Lord has done. Because again, that brings up so much trust when they realize, oh my gosh, God has been so good to me. So when he calls me, why would I not say yes if I know this is God?
That's good.
And this is really where our conversation, I think, comes full circle, because we're wounded, so we don't want to trust. And because we can't trust, we can't surrender. And if we can't surrender, we can't truly do God's will in freedom, because then I'm just trying to force God's will, or I'm trying to force my will. But for St. Ignatius Loyola, the root of sin is not pride, actually. He says in a letter, the root of all sin is a lack of gratitude. Because if I'm not grateful for what God has done, if I'm not remembering all the good things God has done in my life, I'm never going to be able to trust him. And I'm never going to continue to follow his will and do his will, which is the apex of holiness for St. Ignatius, is seeing and doing the will of God. That's the purpose of everything he's doing with the saints he's raising up. And so we need to look back and see how God has been so faithful through so uncertain of times. And that gives me this great confidence. And I think of Psalm 116, where King David just cries out, what should I render to the Lord for all of his goodness to me? And then he says, the cup of salvation I will raise, I will call on the Lord's name. And the Lord responds that the Lord loves the death of his faithful. The Lord is so close to us when we die. And as men, we need to be healed so we can learn to empty ourselves. We're ultimately called to conform and unite ourselves to Jesus. And our founding verse as a community is from Philippians 2, that Jesus, though he was in the form of God, did not deem equality with God something to be grasped at, but he emptied himself and made himself a slave for others. But I'll never empty myself if I don't trust and I don't surrender, if I don't see how good God is, because then that's just a terrifying prospect. But if I can first find healing and find this formation and growth, and then I begin to empty myself in total trust and abandonment, and then, Brad, all of a sudden in freedom with King David again, I could say in Psalm 119 and Psalm 116, I bind myself to do your will.
Yeah, I bind myself.
My vows to the Lord, I will fulfill. And so then you can say in freedom, God, your will is everything. And all I want to do for my life is what you want for my life.
Amen.
But we need to come to a place of freedom where we can say yes.
We do.
Which is why healing really is foundational on the way to holiness and fruitfulness.
That's good. Yeah. And it's that actually squares that circle for me too, in the sense of like the reason we need to know that like the Lord is there with us, that he's in the process of healing us, is because if we don't find that genuine freedom, we create a counterfeit freedom that is demanding certainty. So then I'm going to tell you why I'm exactly certain it's like, no, I'm not certain of anything. I'm just certain of his goodness. That's about what I'm certain of in my life. Like I'm guaranteed his goodness, his presence, and his will being done in my life so long as I surrender to it. And that is what actually allows us to live the adventure, not in anxiety, but in real, like wide-eyed openness, you know? And that also gets us to the point of, there's a G.K. Chesterton line I always use in the formation of our missionaries, where inconvenience is only an adventure wrongly considered. So like in your life, if you feel inconvenienced, like God, it's not, you're not working as fast as I want you to, or this is going way too fast, like whatever end of the spectrum you're on, and you're like, this is a real inconvenience, Lord. Well, if that is only seen through the lens of gratitude, it becomes adventure. Okay, inconvenience. Oh, but I'm really grateful that I'm alive and in this. Okay, now we can have an adventure together. That gratitude. I think it was Meister Eckhart. I'm forgetting. He's a German theologian, but he once said that if the only prayer we were to say was thank you, that would be enough. And like, man, that goes to Ignatius right away. Like if the only prayer I would say is thank you and genuinely mean it, that would be enough. Yeah.
The first step of Ignatius's examen, which we do twice a day, is not recognizing your sins and repenting. It's gratitude. Because once I come to a place of security in how much God loves me, then I can go in my sinfulness, my brokenness, my emptiness with utter confidence that he's going to love me there. And I can bring it all to God and be filled back with him.
Couldn't love you more than he does right now, and loves you way too much to keep you that way. Man, that's dynamism. Like if we can get that right, like there's nothing I'm going to do from this day forward that will make him love me more or less. Yet at the same time, that love, when surrendered to, will change everything about me. That's the take transform thing we were talking about. But man, it's a joy to sit with you guys. I feel like I could go forever, but I'm just know that I'm grateful for our brotherhood. I know from a distance, Denver, Columbus, living a religious life, living in the family context, and trying to live out lay ministry in the ways that God's called me to. I know that our paths seem to cross in an expedited fashion, but to be able to sit down and really hear what God's doing in your lives and to see what he's doing through the servants of Christ Jesus has been a real gift. I end every Damascus podcast conversation with a question that I want to present to both of you, and then we'll call it after that. And the question is this: what do you think God wants this generation to know? At Damascus, we're committed to bringing life-changing encounter to this generation, and it's been a cool tradition of asking each guest, what do they think that God wants this generation to know?
Yeah. Brother Andrew testified to the gift of vows and what that experience was like for him. And to kind of bring forward again this image of just this man with the jar of oil, what I so desire this generation to know is that in a world that's obsessed with financial gain, would it be worth it to be poor with Jesus poor? And I'm so thrilled that I get to say, yes, it would be. And in a world that's obsessed with sex, would it be worth it to be chaste with Jesus chaste? And I'm thrilled to be able to testify, yes, it would be worth it. And in a world that's obsessed with self-assertion, self-manufacturing, self-identifying, could it be worth it to be obedient? And yes, it would be. And so I just hope this generation continues to wrestle with and experience the radicality of Jesus's invitation, and that men and women might even consider in a really real way vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, and ask, would this be worth it? And then taste for themselves to see how worth it is and how real the hundredfold is.
Amen. Yeah, the antidote to the world's falls has always been the virtues that the church holds high. And I love the way you guys live that out. How about you, Brother Andrew?
Yeah, I think something really foundational is with this kind of a prerequisite, because there's so many people who aren't willing to even consider a call to religious life or priesthood.
Yeah.
Or a call to a really holy marriage where you also have to empty yourself in incredible ways. And there's so many men living such complacent lives. Jesus gave us a bit of wisdom 2,000 years ago that we haven't heeded as a world. He gave us a lot of wisdom, but
but here's a particular aspect of that wisdom.
That's right. In Luke chapter 9, verse 24, Jesus is setting his face towards Jerusalem. He's telling his apostles for the first time, I'm going to go and be crucified and rejected and killed for you, and I'm going to rise from the dead and conquer it. And he looks at his apostles and he says, and if you seek to save your life, you will lose it. But if you lose your life for my sake, you will find it. And there's this wisdom that John Paul II, the prophet of our generation, said, that he called the law of the gift, that if you give yourself away, only then will you find happiness. It's to the equivalent you give yourself away, only in that measure will you find true happiness. That if you live your life all for yourself, you're never going to be truly happy. And that's in a natural way and a supernatural way. And it's the reason so many people aren't open to vocations. Because if I've never given of myself and served, if I've never done a mission trip or lived for other people, if I'm all about me and I'm selfish, even for good things like getting good grades or being good at sports, why would I ever even consider giving my whole life away as a missionary for a couple of years, or giving everything away in vows or priesthood or this, again, holy marriage? But then when young people begin to taste, the moment I begin to lose my life and give myself away for others, I experience this profound heavenly joy that I didn't think was possible in this life. And then the question becomes inevitable, what if I gave everything away? And if Jesus proposes that question, all of a sudden, it's not one that's so scary anymore. It's actually one of great adventure and excitement, because it's like, that could be more happiness and joy than I've ever experienced in my life. So my encouragement with John Paul II is, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to give yourself away. Don't be afraid to lose your life, because only in losing your life will you find who you are and who you were created to be. Only then can you actually find the fullness of life. A grain of wheat must fall to the ground and die. And that's painful, but when it dies, it will bear so much fruit.
Matthew 13. Yeah, Gaudium et Spes 24 as well, right?
That's
Man
right.
cannot find himself except through a sincere gift of himself. Well, I'm grateful for the gifts that you guys are, and thanks for the yeses you've given to the Lord, and for the ways that you've served our community here, and for the ways that you serve the Lord and all the ways that you do. So grateful to be a brother, even from a few states away at this juncture in our lives. But thanks for being on the Damascus Podcast, Brother Andrew Brébeuf, Brother Joseph Jogues.
Thank you, Brad.
It's been a gift. Thanks.